Hello, everybody, and welcome back to WM32 Football podcast. And now, today, I have been very, very lucky to be joined by somebody who I have known for quite a while now, but it comes with a fantastic breadth of coaching knowledge and experience, having worked at a couple of professional football clubs up in and around the Northwest. I'm delighted to be joined by Jemma Entwistle today. Jemma, fantastic to have you on the podcast today. Just give us a little bit of an insight then into your coaching journey so far and the role you sort of do now as well.
Yeah, so obviously been coaching now for probably about 9 years. As soon as I could start coaching, with the age of getting your level one, I was doing it. So I think as first started sort of shadowing around the age of 14 when I stopped playing football, and then as soon as I turned 16, wanted to get straight on my level one. As soon as I got my level one, then I wanted to start running my own team. So did that. Obviously, had a good few years in grassroots. Started off with a boys' team, then moved over, ran my own girls' team by myself. And then again, as soon as I passed my level one, got onto my level two, and just really had a passion for it and just wanted to go as far as I could go. So a few years at a girls' club in Bolton called Academy Juniors. So running my team there, taking them from under 11s up to under 16s. Became the chairperson of that club. And then when I got my UEFA B, so when I turned 20, I got onto my UEFA B, I passed that. And that then obviously opened up the next level of doors and opportunities. So to go into a girls' RTC and a boys' academy. So fortunate enough to have got in there. Had two really good seasons at a girls' RTC. Stopped doing that last season, but still in the boys' academy now. So it seems weird talking about it because obviously it's such a long time, but it's compact into that journey so far.
Yeah, no, brilliant, brilliant, and you've like you said there, you started fairly early in life, if you like, from the age of 14, and now as you mentioned, you've become chairperson of the grassroots team. Is that a role, or grassroots club, should I say? Is that a role that you ever envisaged yourself having, or what, or was it just one of those things that has just happened as time's gone on?
Yeah, no, definitely something that just happened. Like even when I was heavily involved with the club and the decision making and promoting ideas, I never thought that I would actually become the chairperson. But then it just sort of fell into it, and it come to the point where the current chairperson was stepping down, and I obviously was just the person that had been there the longest, would help with the decision making, and sort of everyone trusted me to then take on the next steps of that. So yeah, definitely something I didn't see myself doing, but something that I've definitely learned from, enjoyed, hated at the same time, but definitely learned from, and made me a better all round person, I think.
Yeah, no, and I think it's brilliant as well to have somebody like yourself who's been there for a very long time, but actually to have that level of responsibility on your shoulders at still quite a relatively young age. I think that takes a lot of credit from yourself to be able to do. But just going back to your coaching and your coaching journey, you mentioned there that you've had a passion and you've loved coaching. But did you always want to be a coach, or is it, something whereby you thought, well, I've stopped playing football, what's the next step for me?
Yeah, 100%. So obviously, when I was younger and playing football as a female, there's obviously was not a lot of role models around me in terms of the women's game. So I never really saw anything to do with football. Obviously, you dream about when I was watching films like Bend It Like Beckham as if, that would ever happen. But then, so that's as a young kid. And then obviously you get older and start to think about your career and think that that's not going to happen. I don't know of any females in football, don't know what to do. So I wanted to follow suit with my family and join the police originally. And then when it got to like the age of 14, I'd sort of fell out of love with football a little bit because of playing. I wasn't enjoying it as much as I always had done. So I decided to stop playing. And it was just in that moment, sort of by chance, that Steve Watson, who set up Academy Juniors, just comes to me and said, listen, if you don't want to carry on playing, that's absolutely fine. That's your decision. But what about getting involved, helping some of the younger girls? What about refereeing? What about this? So that opportunity opportunity, then I thought, yeah, do you know what? I love football. I'm not enjoying playing, but I'd still want to be part of it. And then it was really down to Steve that I got involved in everything I did, because he was running a local sports coaching company, as well as obviously he'd set up Academy Juniors. So he let me shadow with everything, with after school club, sports camps, and obviously then the club and him supporting me on my coaching badges. So definitely something I didn't see myself doing. And then I think when you start coaching, probably about 17, that's when I decided that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I think, it sounds like that there's been a certain somebody that's been crucial to you in your development, and whatnot. And, again, even at the young age that you was, 17, it's, you still had a clear plan and a clear goal of, what you wanted to do. And I think, and as I know you personally, and it's like you've really taken that next step on the journey 100%. And knowing you like I do, and things like that, you've really done well. From what I've seen anyway, you've done really, really well in getting to where you're at now. And you mentioned there about Steve, and helping you and everything else. Was he somebody then that you looked up to? And are there any other coaches that you've looked up to as well?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely sort of was my inspiration, and I had a really positive relationship with him, where he was just there for me all the time. He would always offer me advice. He was an inspiring figure, but he was close to me so that I could use him for any information that I needed. He supported me, away from football as well, and gives me regular life advice, and obviously still in touch with him now, and he's still catching up with me and asking each other how we're doing. So in terms of like a personal point of view, he's definitely somebody that's inspired me and that I look up to, as well as my mum. My mum's a massive inspiration for me, because obviously I started so young at 14, and then 16 running my team. I couldn't drive at that point, so she was literally my taxi everywhere, and she would give up her Friday nights or Sunday mornings, Sunday afternoons to take me and support me wherever and whatever I wanted to do. So for her bringing up 3 girls on her own, and to still give me that much time to do all those things, as well as supporting my other sisters, she's definitely a big inspiration for me personally. And then in terms of the game and coaches, I took a lot of inspiration from a guy called John Wooden. So he was a basketball coach, legendary. Just the way he used to coach. Obviously, it's a different sport. Don't have that much knowledge of the game of basketball other than doing my level 1 when we were at uni. But just the way he was with players, and I've read his book and read what others have said about him, and the philosophy and his 12 blocks of leadership. So that took a lot of sort of form in my personal philosophy. And then probably in football, obviously Alex Ferguson, as a Man United fan, from a management point of view, so brilliant man manager. But from a coach development point of view, the likes of sort of Pete Sturgis from the FA, I take a lot of inspiration from, and look into his work a lot, and how he coaches. And again, I think as a coach and a student of the game, you've got to take your knowledge from everywhere and everybody that's sort of at that level. But I think only certain people can mean something to you as an individual, and the way it comes across, if that makes sense. So those people that I've mentioned that have formed how I deliver and how I am as a person, and how I communicate, rather than giving me, a knowledge of the game.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and actually, it's quite interesting that you've picked out, perhaps, obviously like your mum, and you mentioned the taxi service and whatnot, which I think is great, but also dipping into other sports and using what happens in other sports, and how that then can relate to your coaching within football. And it's not necessarily the managers and the coaches at the top. You mentioned Pete Sturgis from the FA and whatnot, and other people as well, which I think was fantastic. And Jemma, you mentioned there about John Wooden and philosophies and everything else. If you could define your coaching philosophy, what is it?
Oh, it's a tough question. You would hope after several years at university, I would have to be able to recite a philosophy to you. I always found that task hard when it said, "Oh, write down your philosophy in 5 sentences or whatever." But I think speaking just generally about it, it's a player-centred approach, and it's about developing good people. So for me, it's really key. Obviously, as a coach, you want to develop good players, but above all else, for me, I want to develop good people. I want to develop good human beings that have the relevant skills to succeed in life, so not just in the game. And, you know, a lot of that is about that connection that you make with the players, building trust with them, creating really positive relationships so that they see you as somebody they can go to, yes, for help on the football pitch, but also other things that they're struggling with, and how to manage, you know, the time effectively. What if something's bothering them that's then affecting the performance? I think that's really important for me. So, yeah, a holistic approach that's definitely player-centred and more about dealing with people as human beings rather than just players on the pitch.
Yeah, perfect. And I like the fact that you want to be able to develop the players as people, and develop them to make sure they have the necessary sort of life skills, if you like, as they progress forwards, and not just all about what happens on the pitch. You know, you mentioned there about having an open door for the players to speak to you about stuff away from the pitch, and I think that's quite crucial, especially in certain ages, probably more around the ages of 12 to 16, with a lot of changes happening in teenage bodies and everything else.
Yeah, I wonder where I've been having this debate with myself in terms of my philosophy and the role I do, because obviously I'm very much at the developmental phase in coaching and how many of those are going to make it into the professional game. We know the statistics are really, really slim. So it would be not fair of me to place all of that on developing players and developing a win at all cost mentality, because the harsh reality is a lot of them aren't going to become professional footballers. They're going to need skills to then go on into different careers. And I wonder whether it's my philosophy that has put me in that environment, or whether that environment has created that philosophy out of me. And I don't know whether if I went into a different setting, say a first team setting, whether I would make a good first team coach because of that, or whether my then philosophy would then adapt and change to be something different. It's an interesting debate that I've been having with myself recently.
Well, I guess you've had plenty of time to have the debate during lockdown and whatnot. And actually, Jemma, you mentioned something about you know, it depends on the group that you work with, and that leads me quite nicely onto my next question, actually. So, you know, when you're in charge of teams and whatnot, would you say you have a defined way of playing, like a playing style, or again, you know, does it depend on the group that you're working with?
Yeah, I think it does depend on the group that I'm working with, but there's definitely certain traits that I want to see in all my teams. So things like hard working, a press style, so like to high press and get at them and be aggressive. Obviously, that's something that I try and do no matter what group, and it comes out through the intensity of my sessions and, you know, being on at the players quite a lot. However, obviously, game to game, if we talk about sort of game management, that might change if we're playing against a team that we're not going to be successful at doing that, and you might have to sort of adapt that a little bit. So I think overall, it does adapt to different teams, but it's just sort of like a common sense style of play, really. So yes, we like to play out from the back and build through the thirds, but if that's not on, don't be afraid to skip out a unit and try and hit the front man straight away. So I don't think I would say that I'm, you know, sort of married to a playing style and we have to play this way. I think it's just sort of common sense and problem solving, right? A team set up like this against us, what we're going to do, and making sure the players are exposed to that and exposed to all the different situations, rather than just this is how we play, and then if a team sets up against you that you can't do that against, your players are a bit like, oh well, what do we do now? But in general, I think definitely wants to press and get at players, and obviously everyone loves to see fast attacking football when we've got the ball. But I think that's just the game. I don't think anybody sets out in the game to play slow football. But yeah, so more of a common sense style, I think.
No, it's brilliant, and I think that's the first time I've heard the phrase common sense football. But no, I completely understand and know where you're coming from with that, and whatnot as well. And you know, I think to be able to have players within your team and within your units to be adaptable and to problem solve, I think is crucial. because I don't, like you said, it might be that you want to try and play out from the back and build through the thirds of the pitch, but if the opposition are recognising that early, then like you say, it might just be a case of, right, well, we'll just miss out the middle unit and we'll just hit the front player early, and then perhaps look to play off of that. So now I completely understand where you're coming from in terms of common sense football, but like I say, it's a phrase I've heard for the first time today. So
I think that's the language we use at the academy quite a lot, because it's obviously a Cat 3 academy of a League One club, so very much we just call it common sense football. No set times, no ticky tacky, just get it over and let's then go and play with an overload. But yeah, that's just from being in that environment, I think.
Yeah, no, perfect. And I like the fact that it's sort of true and real to that environment that you're in, as well, because you might go into an environment and expect to be playing, like you mentioned, tiki-taka or expansive football, but actually, is it relevant to the level that you're at? Well, chances are it's probably not going to be relevant.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I like the fact that it's just relevant to and real to where you are. And Jemma, you mentioned there that you like players to sort of work hard and whatnot. Are those the outstanding qualities that you look for in a player, or are there other ones that you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I think hard work is something 100% that you want to see in every sort of walk of life, and that can obviously be reflected in different ways. But I think I've always been of the belief that yes, to make it as an elite footballer, you have to have hard work. You've also got to have ability. But I think as a coach, personal preference, I would rather have people that weren't as good technically that can work 100% than people who are absolutely amazing technically who can only work at 10%. That's just my preference. Obviously, the ones with the talent and the technical ability are going to shine and might succeed, but sooner or later they're going to have that switch where they're going to have to work for it. So I think that's definitely something I look for. But I've always enjoyed sort of clever, intelligent players. So passers of the ball, ones that can pick out a clever pass, clever through ball, because Paul Scholes was one of my favourite players. So players like him that were just one step ahead of the game and knew everything that was around and constantly scanning. But I think obviously that comes at a certain age. So I used to work a lot with older players, and that's why I'd look for that. Whereas more recently, being at the academy, it's at the foundation phase. So that's obviously flipped to look at people who are really good on the ball, can stay on the ball, and they find themselves in a situation. You think, go on, how are you going to get out of that? There might be 3v1 in a corner or whatever, and you want to see those players that have got a bit about them that can then try and work their way out of that situation. So I think that has probably shifted a little bit over the past couple of years, where I might not have given those type of players as much attention. But yeah, so I would say that.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And I like the fact as well that you've probably adapted and changed in terms of what you might look for, because as you mentioned, you were more used to working with older players, but since being in the academy, you're working at the complete opposite end, if you like. So I think it's good that you've also adapted and changed perhaps what you might look for depending on the group of players that you work with. And Jemma, you mentioned there that you're quite like the clever sort of technical players, and Paul Scholes was a hero of yours. But would you say you have a bias towards those certain types of players, or any type of player?
I mean, yeah, I think, like I said, I think probably hard workers is my biggest bias. So if somebody's not pulling the weight in terms of arms are going up in the air every time, they're not doing a recovery run, they're not making that, I am aware that it's sort of an immediate, or well, are they good enough because they're not working hard enough? Whereas the players that are absolutely running the socks off, even though they might not be quite as good technically, you're thinking, yeah, I'm having them. So I'm aware of that, and obviously, like we, biases you've got to be aware of, and you've got to try to not let them affect you. It's impossible to eliminate all biases. But I think that's my biggest bias. But having recently done the sort of talent ID course, level 1, level 2, that obviously talks a lot about biases and how to eliminate them when you're trying to spot a player. So I think now I'm aware of that because of discussing it. I can sort of put that in one box and think, right, yeah, am I just looking at him or her because they are literally covering every inch of the pitch? Am I missing somebody that might work hard if they're, with the right coach, really? Because I've been lucky enough to work with some really talented players, and at first they might seem like they're that type of player that has got unbelievable talent but just not willing to work. And then you actually coach them and work with them and develop a relationship with them, and then they start working for you. So yeah, I think that's a big bias of mine that I'm trying to be aware of. And like I say, with that last point, I think sometimes it's not just because they can't be bothered. There might be other things going on that pitch that you might be able to help them through, and then they start to work for you, and then they've got both the talent and the work rate.
Yeah, no, and I think it's quite interesting actually that you mentioned that, with certain players you form a relationship with them, and then all of a sudden, because they seem to have a bit more trust in you, if you like, they end up almost performing that little bit more for you out on the pitch. And I think that's quite an interesting one, and quite an interesting point that you make there. Because I'm sure that many coaches that have probably stumbled across that at some point, and I think that will always be an age-old question. Well, how and why is it taken for a coach to try and have a relationship with the player to get them going again, as opposed to just being coach, and whatnot?
Yeah, and I think it definitely makes you question yourself sometimes as well. When you've got a player that's so talented and you see different things from him, but then when you're asking them to do something, they just don't do it, and you think, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? How can I get the best out of them? But I think if you're asking those questions all the time and you try different things, and then if you do start to see that improvement, then right now I know what makes them tick and how to get that out of them. So I think it's having those experiences of those players rather than just writing it off. I think that's probably what I did early on. You just write them off and think, oh well, they're just not willing to work. They don't want to listen. They're not coachable is a phrase I hear a lot. I don't know if you hear that a lot, but they're not coachable. And I think I've stopped writing that off and started thinking, no, right, what can I do? What can we try? What can we do? And then sooner or later, it's just trial and error, and you're going to hit something that's like, right, that works. With that's going to make them work.
Yeah, no, definitely, and you mentioned there the word coachability, and again that is a word that I've started to hear a lot of in the last couple of years, especially. But I think as well that word is quite subjective, because coachability, I think, is going to mean, it will probably mean different things. So what it might mean for me might be completely different to what you think coachability is, and other people, other coaches. So I think to try and define that, I think is quite difficult. But I guess like you said, it's all about trying to find what works for the individual player, and then trying to get the best out of that individual player as well.
Yeah.
And Jemma, you seem like you have quite a lot of coaching qualifications and whatnot already. Obviously you've mentioned you UEFA B and being at university and all of those kind of things. Do you want to take that next step on in your coaching ladder and perhaps go for your A license, or are you sort of happy with the level that you're at currently?
I think definitely I want to get there eventually. Initially, I was thinking A license would be the next step, because I was working when I was at the RTC with the older age groups. But like I say, having worked at the academy with the foundation phase, I'm thinking next best step is probably the Advanced Youth Award, because a lot of my colleagues in the academy have gone on that and really recommend it, and the amount of depth and detail it covers in all four corners. So I think that's definitely something I'm targeting next. Obviously with the lockdown, it's difficult to look at booking, but it was going to be the next step, as in the start of the next season. I was going to get on that. So still looking towards that, and then probably give that a couple of years to digest, and then look to get on the A license when it's appropriate, when I might be working with slightly older players, day in, day out.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And obviously you mentioned talent ID qualifications as well there. Are you, obviously after lockdown is all over and all of this kind of thing, are you looking perhaps to go up the ladder with those as well, or again are you happy with the level that you've got to with those?
Yeah, I think for the time being, obviously happy with that, but you've got to keep an open mind, and a transition into scouting might come at a later stage. So definitely keep an open mind. But I think at the minute I'm very much focused on being a coach. So I think that level of the level 2 was sort of the right mix between helping your coaching knowledge, but obviously you've got to view it from a scout point of view. And then I think I've not actually spoke to anybody that's been on the level 3 or higher. But how much that then is just focused all around scouting as opposed to a bit of coaching as well. So I think for the time being, happy with that one, but you never know in the future it might sort of turn to more of a scouting role.
Brilliant. No, I like that, and I like the fact as well that you've got a bit of a sort of plan in place, but also that contingency plan is there as well should you need it, and I think that's brilliant. And Jemma, you'll have seen this probably firsthand a lot throughout your coaching journey in terms of developing and trying to get better and whatnot. But for you, what could be done to help coaches develop a bit further?
In terms of what can be done with the game or advice?
A little bit of both, I'm going to say.
I mean, I think in terms of helping coaches get better, like from an FA point of view with coaching courses, I think they have definitely improved. I remember like back to my level 1, my level 2, the type of content, obviously they got slated and that's why they changed them. But even my UEFA B was the old style UEFA B before they changed those. So I think obviously the new courses that have come out, I've not actually been on them, obviously, because I did the old UEFA B, but I'm told they're a lot better and they do seem a lot better. And in terms of the FA learning, that's a lot more interactive and the courses on there are really good. And obviously they've got the webinars. So I think they are going in the right direction. And especially the thing I like most about the FA courses are the fact that they're going into their own environment. So a coach, the players that the coach is working with on a regular basis, the coach educator gets to see, because that was obviously a big thing. You went on a course with 30 people you'd never met before, and then you have to do a session to those people who might range from the age of 16 to 55 and all different abilities, and then that's judging you as a coach. I think massive improvement and step in the right direction for supporting coaches in their own environment. I think still more needs to be done, because it's that balance, isn't it? Like, coaching is practical. You're out there, you're on the pitch. Yes, you can sort of learn about the theories and stuff behind it, which definitely help and give you an evidence-based approach. But you need mentoring, and I think the coach mentor scheme was really good that they set up, which I don't see a lot of anymore. I don't even know if it's still going, to be honest. You might know better than me with that one. That thing, like say, having people there that are watching you, whether it is an official coach mentor, if it's just your mate that you coach with, or if it's somebody else from your club that can stay behind and watch your session and give you feedback, I think that can definitely help. And that would be my advice as well, I guess. Like, just get out there, coach as much as you can, but be open and receptive to feedback. Obviously, nobody likes being criticised, but as long as it's positive and constructive, and you're around people who you trust and value that feedback, I think I'd encourage that as much as you can. Just do a session, ask people what you think of that, ask your players what you think of that. I do that quite a lot and ask them, did you enjoy it? Was it fun? What could we have done? What could we have changed? Because obviously they're the most important part in that session. And something I'm still not 100% confident with, but definitely helps, is videoing yourself, recording yourself, listening to your audio. Obviously, I probably won't listen to this podcast back because I hate the sound of my own voice. But it does definitely help. When I first watched myself back coaching, it's just like, wow, like you just don't realise the amount you can learn just from watching yourself back. So yeah, that'd be my little snippet of advice for people.
Perfect. And Gemma, I'd echo the fact that you mentioned about, for young people or young coaches, just to get out there and go for it and do it. And I also like the idea of the video. Bit disappointed that you might not listen to this one back again, because there's nothing quite like self-promotion and whatnot. But no, I think, as you say, you might, with the video analysis, of yourself, you might pick up little things that you didn't realise that you actually do. Or I think one of the big ones will probably be phrases that you, or words that you, you might not realise that you say a lot. And I know obviously from our time at university, we had some experience with videos and video analysis from ourselves as coaches, and there was little bits that we would pick up from each other that perhaps the other coaches or the other people didn't know that they did. But Jemma, I just want to say a massive thank you for taking your time out and answering these questions today. So guys, that is it for us for today. We are on Spotify, so give us a follow on there at WM32Football. The video will also be up on YouTube, so like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Again, WM32Football for that. And if you would like to share your story, please get in contact with us on the different social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well. Again, at WM32Football for those. And it just leaves me to say a massive thank you to Jemma Entwistle for taking her time out today. Jemma, thank you so much.
No worries, Wes.